He walked in, and saw his wife pouring hot oil on his mother's face. The scream that followed tore through his soul, echoing like thunder in his chest. But before that horrible night, their story had been beautiful. David and Grace were the kind of couple people admired. 2 years into their marriage, they still held hands in public, still laughed like teenagers. They lived in a modest rented apartment in the heart of the city, a place small enough to keep them close, yet big enough to dream in. Life wasn't perfect, but it was peaceful. Then one morning, a call came from the village. David's mother, Mary, was unwell. Her health was failing, and the local clinic couldn't handle her condition. Without hesitation, David decided to bring her to the city for better care. Grace smiled weakly when he told her. "Of course she can come," she said. But deep down something shifted. She liked her privacy, her freedom, and she feared her mother-in-law's presence would change everything. When Mary arrived, she came with soft eyes and gentle words. She thanked Grace, called her my daughter, and offered to help around the house. First it went smoothly. Grace tried to be welcoming, though she didn't like how often Mary reminded David about how a home should be run. A week passed. The small apartment began to feel crowded. 2 women with different ways of doing things, 2 hearts trying to own the same space. Grace started complaining subtly. "David," she said one night, "I'm not comfortable. Your mother keeps rearranging my things. I can't breathe in my own house." David sighed. "Grace, please. She's sick. She'll only stay for a while." "But it's already a week." Grace snapped, then lowered her voice when she saw his tired eyes. "Fine. Just don't let her overstep." David kissed her forehead. "Thank you, my love. You won't regret this." But she did. Mary's condition seemed to improve, but her appetite grew. One afternoon, while Grace was out shopping, Mary got hungry and ate the food Grace had cooked earlier, the only meal left in the kitchen. When Grace returned and found the pot empty, her heart burned with rage. "So she's eating my food now," she muttered, pacing. She stormed into the bedroom, glaring at the frail old woman resting on the bed. "Mama," she said coldly, "did you eat the stew I cooked?" Mary blinked. "Yes, my daughter. I was weak and—" Grace's voice cut through the air. "You're shameless. You think this is your house. You think you can just eat anything you see." Mary sat up slowly, her voice trembling. "Grace, I didn't mean—" "Shut up," Grace snapped. Her anger boiled over. Her mind, clouded with resentment, forgot reason. She stormed into the kitchen, eyes blazing, grabbed the pot of oil still warm from earlier cooking, and marched back toward the room. At that very moment the front door opened. David had come home early from work. He smiled, calling out, "Grace, I brought." Then he froze. He saw it. His wife standing over his mother, her arm raised, oil dripping from the pot. Before I continue, if stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to subscribe and like this video so you never miss what happens next. "Grace." "No," he shouted, running forward, but too late. The hot oil splashed, and Mary's scream ripped through the air. David shoved Grace aside, grabbing his mother as she writhed in agony. "What have you done?" he cried. Grace froze, her hands trembling. She ate my food, David. I just wanted to." "Wanted to what?" he roared, wrapping a wet cloth around his mother's face. "Kill her." He lifted Mary in his arms, ignoring Grace's pleas, and rushed out of the apartment. His mind raced as he drove through the city, honking, praying, crying, but her breathing was fading fast. "Mama, stay with me, please," he begged. But by the time he reached the hospital gate, her body went still. David screamed into the night, his heart shattering beyond repair. And as he fell to his knees beside her lifeless form, one thought echoed louder than the sound of his tears. He had just lost his mother to the hands of the woman he loved. The hospital corridor was silent except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. David sat on the cold bench, his hands stained with oil and tears. The doctor had already confirmed what his heart refused to believe. Mary was gone. He sat still, numb, staring at his palms. Those same hands had once held both women he loved most. Now one was dead, and the other had killed her. Moments later, a nurse approached gently. "Sir, we need to take your mother's body to the morgue." David nodded slowly, his lips trembling. "Please, be gentle with her." He watched as they rolled the stretcher away, his chest hollow. When the last corner swallowed her body, something inside him broke completely. He drove home in silence that night. The city lights blurred through his tears. Every honk, every pedestrian, every flicker of light felt like mockery. When he entered the house, Grace was still sitting on the floor, trembling. Her eyes were red, her face pale, her hands clasped as if begging an unseen mercy. The moment she saw him, she rushed forward. "David, how's Mama? Please tell me she's gone." The words sliced through the air. Grace froze, her mouth open but no sound coming out. David's eyes burned as he stared at her. "You killed her, Grace. You killed my mother." She fell to her knees, shaking uncontrollably. No, David, I didn't mean to. I was angry. I just wanted to scare her. Please believe me." David turned away, tears streaming down his face. "Anger? You call this anger? You poured hot oil on an old woman because she ate your food. Grace, what have you become?" She crawled toward him, clutching his trousers. "Please, David, don't call the police. Can explain. It was the devil, it wasn't me." He stepped back sharply. "Don't you dare blame the devil for what you did." Grace's sobs filled the room, but David was deaf to them. He grabbed his phone and dialed the police. "Hello, officer. I'd like to report an assault, resulting in death." Grace screamed, lunging for the phone, but David's eyes were empty. His decision final. "You'll answer for this, Grace. I won't let my mother's blood cry in vain." Minutes later, flashing blue lights painted the walls of their apartment. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering. Grace's cries echoed through the compound as two officers led her away in handcuffs. "David, please. I'm your wife. I didn't mean it." He turned away, unable to look. As the police van drove off, David stood in the doorway, a broken man staring at the ruins of his home. The smell of burnt oil still lingered in the air, mingling with grief and regret. That night he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother's face. The pain, the fear, the betrayal. He also saw Grace's, full of regret and confusion, like a woman who didn't understand the monster she'd become. The next morning, David went to the police station to give his statement. The officer in charge, a middle-aged man named Inspector Cole, listened carefully, then sighed. "Mr. David," he said softly, "this case will go to court. But I must tell you, crimes of passion often carry heavy sentences, especially when death is involved." David nodded. "I just want justice. Nothing more." Cole hesitated. "You still love her, don't you?" David's voice broke. "I don't know anymore." That night, alone in his dark apartment, David picked up his mother's framed photo from the bedside table. Her smile, frozen in time, tore his heart apart. He whispered, "Mama, I'll make sure she pays for what she did. I promise." But as he set the photo down, something unexpected happened. A faint knock echoed from the door. David frowned, checking the time. It was past midnight. He opened the door slowly, and froze. Standing there in the darkness was a young boy, holding an envelope. "Are you Mr. David?" the boy asked softly. "Yes, who are you?" The boy handed him the envelope. "A woman at the police station told me to give you this. She said her name is Grace. David stood frozen at the doorway, staring at the small envelope in his hand. The boy had already disappeared into the night, leaving only the whisper of his bicycle tires behind. The envelope was thin, slightly stained, and smelled faintly of the oil that still haunted his memory. He took a deep breath and tore it open. Inside was a folded letter, written in Grace's neat handwriting. His heart pounded as he began to read. David, I know you'll never forgive me. I can't forgive myself either. I see your mother's face every time I close my eyes. I didn't plan to hurt her. I just snapped. I've been losing my mind, trapped between guilt and anger. I deserve whatever comes next. But please remember that once before all this, I truly loved you. A tear splashed onto the paper. He sat down slowly, his head in his hands. Every word felt like a knife twisting deeper into his chest. He could still hear her voice, trembling in the kitchen that day, and his mother's scream, the sound that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The next morning he went to the station. Grace sat behind a metal table, wearing a dull prison uniform. Her once bright eyes were empty now, sunken and red from crying. When she saw him, she broke down immediately. David. He looked at her silently. Why did you write that letter? I just needed you to know I wasn't a monster, she said through tears. I lost control. I've been dealing with so much, the pressure, your mother's criticism, my loneliness. I thought if I told you, you'd think I was weak. David's voice cracked. Grace, my mother was sick. You were supposed to care for her, not hate her. Grace wiped her face, trembling. I know. And that's the part I'll never forgive myself for. Every minute in this cell feels like punishment already. The officer on duty cleared his throat. Mr. David, visiting time is almost over. David nodded slowly. Grace, the law will decide your punishment. But you need to start praying. Because no prison can heal a soul that refuses to face its truth. She looked at him, sobbing. Will you ever forgive me? He didn't answer. He stood and walked toward the door. But just as he reached for the handle, she called out behind him. David, please. Tell your mother I'm sorry. He froze, then whispered. She already knows. Days turned into weeks. The case went to court. The story spread across the city. Wife pours hot oil on mother-in-law. It became a headline on every radio and blog. People argued about who was right, who was wrong, and what drove Grace to such madness. In court, Grace stood trembling in the dock as the judge read the charges. Manslaughter with intent. Her lawyer pleaded for mercy, arguing emotional instability, but the evidence was overwhelming. David sat in the courtroom, his mother's picture clutched in his hand, as witnesses spoke. The doctor, the police, the neighbors. Grace kept her eyes on the floor the entire time. When the verdict finally came, the judge's voice was steady. Grace Miller, this court finds you guilty of the murder of Mary Miller. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years imprisonment, without the possibility of parole for the first 15. The gavel struck. Grace let out a quiet cry, not of surprise but of surrender. David closed his eyes. Justice had been served, but peace still felt far away. Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed, asking questions, flashing cameras. David said nothing. He just walked past them into the street, into the noise of the world that no longer felt like home. That night, he sat alone in the apartment, the same one that once held laughter, love, and the warmth of family. The kitchen was spotless now, but every corner whispered of tragedy. He opened his mother's Bible and found a note tucked between the pages, written by her hand months ago. Son, always remember, forgiveness doesn't free the guilty, it frees the one who forgives. David stared at those words until his tears blurred them. For the first time since her death, he whispered softly, Mama, I'm trying. Just then his phone buzzed. A message appeared, from an unknown number. He opened it, and his hands went cold. It was a video. Grace in her prison cell, crying and holding something small in her hand. The caption read, "David, there's something you don't know. Please come see me before it's too late." David sat in his car for almost an hour, staring at the video again and again. Grace's face haunted him, pale, desperate, broken. The last line of her message repeated in his head, "Please come see me before it's too late." He didn't want to go. He wanted to forget. But something inside him, maybe guilt, maybe unfinished love, pushed him to drive back to the prison the next morning. When he arrived, the warden recognized him immediately. "You're here for inmate Grace Miller, right?" "Yes," David said quietly. The warden's face darkened. "I'm afraid she's not doing well. She tried to harm herself 2 nights ago. She's in the infirmary now." David's heart dropped. He was led through a dim hallway that smelled of bleach and sorrow. When he entered the small room, Grace was sitting by the window, her wrists bandaged, her eyes tired but strangely calm. She turned when she heard the door open. "You came," she whispered. David nodded, his throat dry. "I got your message. What did you want to tell me?" She motioned for him to sit. "There's something I never said, something you deserve to know." He hesitated, then sat across from her. Grace's voice trembled. "That day, when I poured the oil, I was already losing my mind. I hadn't slept in days. I was angry, but I was also hearing things. My own thoughts turned against me. I thought everyone hated me, even you." David's brows furrowed. "Grace." Tears slid down her face. "I went to the hospital last year, before your mother came. The doctor said I had early signs of depression. I ignored it. I thought I could handle it myself. But it got worse, David. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to look weak." She sobbed, clutching her bandaged wrists. "I wasn't in control that day. I wish I could undo it. I killed the only woman who ever treated me like a daughter." David sat still for a long time, staring at her. The pain in his chest was heavy, but different now. He saw not just a murderer, but a broken woman drowning in guilt and sickness she'd hidden too long. After a while he spoke softly. "Grace, you did a terrible thing. Nothing can change that. But maybe this world needs to stop pretending that anger and depression aren't real. You should have spoken up." Grace nodded, sobbing harder. "I know. And now it's too late." He sighed, his voice low. "It's never too late to seek forgiveness." They sat in silence for a while. Grace whispered, "David, I don't expect you to forgive me. But if you ever find peace again, please live. Don't let my mistake bury you too." David stood, tears running down his face. "Goodbye, Grace." As he turned to leave, Grace reached out weakly. "David." He paused. She smiled faintly. "Tell your mother I'll see her. And ask her to forgive me when I do." He didn't look back. The guards let him out, and the door closed behind him with a heavy clang that echoed through his bones. A week later, David received another call from the prison. Grace had passed away in her sleep. The official report said heart failure, but David knew she'd simply stopped fighting. He attended her burial. Just him, the chaplain, and a few guards. No one else came. He placed a single white rose on her grave and whispered, "I forgive you, Grace. Rest now." Months passed. David sold the apartment and moved to a quieter part of the city. He started volunteering at a rehabilitation center for women battling mental health issues and domestic anger, using Grace's story as a warning and a lesson. One evening, after a long counseling session, he walked to the hospital chapel where his mother had once prayed. He knelt and whispered, "Mama, justice was served, but I learned something too. Pain doesn't end with punishment. It ends with understanding. The candlelight flickered as if in response. He stood, took a deep breath, and stepped outside into the cool evening air. The city was quiet, peaceful, almost forgiving. And as he walked away from the past, David knew one truth that every parent, spouse, and child needed to hear. Anger is a fire. If you don't control it, it will burn the ones you love, and then it will burn you too.